Now there's several cards out there if you would like to write down a question of any of the panelists. Just put the name you want to ask, and either my son or Bill Cooler or anybody back here can grab them for you. But as we go along, we really want you to ask the questions. So our first panelist is our Honorable Mayor Andrew Cook. Just got re-elected. And I think a standing ovation for Mr. Cook is warranted after all the work he's done.
Veto.
So I'll tell the story now because I've apologized to him already, but since this is the first time I've had Steve Hinkie and Mayor Cook in the room together, it was 6, 7, 8, I don't even know how many years ago, but we were at the WYSI board meeting, and they were presenting this concept of Grand Park. And I called BS on it and said, nah, that's not something we want to do. And of course, I lost the vote 6-1. But these guys had a vision, and, you know, I was against it. And, you know, I want to say in front of everybody today, I was wrong. They were right. And I've become a big investor in the park, but their vision, I'm telling you, it's not only worked, it's working, and it'll only get better. Next panelist is Rob Bloom, CEO of Community First Bank. Known Rob since early 2000s, and I would tell you, in a banking borrowing situation, you make your best relationships in tough times. And obviously in the manufacturing world in 2003, the company I was CEO of was going through a tough time, and Rob not only stuck his hand out and helped, he got involved and helped us get through a tough time. So I've been a long time with him. He's a good banker. Next is Seth Warren, CEO of Riverview, and I've told this in front of a lot of people before, but Riverview, Pat Fox, she's here, and Seth combined have invested several millions of dollars in buildings, people, but also our schools and our stadium. Next panelist is Chris Wilkes Holiday. You're sitting in his building. He developed this, financed it for the city. He's also done Hampton here in town, and he, along with Chris White, have got North Point really cooking. I don't know if you've seen the news lately, but we have a lot of action going out there, which is a testament to our city leaders and developers working together. Then the last one is what I call the master developer, Steve Hinkie. He's had it done over $1 billion of assessed value in this town. And I'll tell you a quick story. Several years ago, he took me on a go-kart ride through some woods up here in the north. And he goes, yeah, right here's going to be hole number 1, here's hole number 10, here's the clubhouse. I looked at Hinkie and go, man, are you on drugs? I mean, what is this? And of course, now it's Chatham. All right? So he took me over to Zionsville, drove me through it. This time I said, I believe you. But the man has game eyes. And I've coached for many years. I've been a head coach, assistant coach. And there's people that can practice coach. And then there's guys that are in the game that see something that everybody else doesn't see. And Steve Hinkie sees stuff that very few of us see. He sees the future nicely. He's done a hell of a job for Westfield. So with that, I'd like for you to write down questions, pass them up, but I'm going to start out with the first question. It goes to Mayor Cook. And then each one of these gentlemen will answer the same question. It's called Why Westfield? And what I want, hopefully today when you leave here, you'll have a better feeling about investing in our community, bringing clients to our community, and bankers financing in this community. So with that, Mayor Cook, why don't you give them a little highlight of why Westfield?
Am I supposed to tell a story about you?
No.
We all can.
You already did yourself. Yeah, I remember that day. You sat in my office, you said, hey, this thing isn't going to work. But then you came back and said, you were wrong. I like that. That's class. Hey, first of all, thank you all for being here. What a great crowd. And Birch, to you and Ed Rock, thank you for putting this together. We're always anxious to boast about the city, but let me tell you, first of all, I have been absolutely blessed over the last 12, 13 years with a great council, great department heads, employees that, and other city agencies that we've been able to really work together on a lot of things, given some certain direction and where we need to go. I mean, a lot of you in here have heard me say this before, but the role of a mayor has completely changed over the time I first began my employment for the city of Westfield. And you know, the day of plugging potholes, plowing snow, picking up garbage, that's the basics. Today, a mayor, in order to create a successful city, must create a place. And that starts really with, again, back to the basics. Planning, sticking to a plan, land use plans, such as we developed some, guys, back in 2007, what was going to go as far as residential, industrial, commercial, retail. You need to have, along with that goes roadway planning. You know, and where in the world do we need to address future and predict future needs? And vastly coupled with all of that is the financial planning. And that is to be able to reach a point where I feel like we are today. We're in very good shape financially. We have the lowest per capita debt in all of Hamilton County. And we've, along the way to get financially secure, we did a few unusual things, such as selling our water and wastewater utility several years ago. That was a move that a lot of people were like, well, you can't do that. Well, I guess we did. And what happened there was we had a very marketable system. Todd Bertrand, my chief of staff, back there in the back, hi Todd, headed that program up. And what it did was some very good short-term and long-term benefits, because we sold the utility, we eliminated millions of dollars of debt, paid off all that debt, and we put $40 million cash in the bank. And what that allowed us to do then, mostly through leveraging those funds with the state and federal government on transportation projects, mostly at 80% federal, 20% local, we were able to get far ahead of our transportation needs. And that's why you see the infrastructure around Grant Park really ahead of its needs. We don't have too many pinch points, if you will, as far as traffic here in the city of Westfield. Where we do, such as State Road 32 downtown, they're being addressed with upcoming projects. But it also allowed us to do something that we could not do as a utility, as a government. And that was to be able to stay up with the coming growth here in the city of Westfield. There is no way our little city government could have ever had the access to capital to put all the pipes in the ground that Citizens has done over the last several years to keep up with the growth that we have been blessed with. All of our city departments work towards those plans. Public safety, for example, both of our fire and police have been able to work from a very proactive, preventative position, quite unusual. My chiefs do not allow me to speak of the very low fire and crime rates because they're afraid I will jinx them, but it is something, again, safe city, extremely important. And as we developed all these plans and worked towards them, and amazingly, if you go back to our 2007 comprehensive land use plan, it also predicted the population many years in the future. And although prediction was made in 2007, the prediction for 2020 was this city would be about 41,000 people. And that's just about exactly where we're going to end up being. So all of the plans that we work from in all of the areas of the city have worked towards really where we are today. And we're ready now to further market this city and further diversify its tax base. We knew some 6 or 8 years ago that Westfield needed an industry because we didn't have one. And we needed a commercial tax base. And we came up with this, as Birch will tell you, a wacky idea of developing the industry of hospitality through tourism. Tourism right here in this beautiful flat land of central Indiana. Did it work? Well, you know, today Grand Park is the most sought after family sports park in America. It is the largest sports park in America right here in our little city. The economic development that it brings into this area is phenomenal. In 2018, we entertained over 2 million people from all over the country here in Westfield. And when they spend about $150 to $180 per person per day, you can quickly do the math and think about the impact that has had on our whole area. The hospitality industry, the hotel industry. In the year 2018, Grand Park was responsible for over 500,000 room nights in all of central Indiana. Second only to the downtown Indianapolis Convention Center. So the business of sports has been a huge impact from a visitor's standpoint, from a spend, and the primary purpose of Grand Park was to develop a commercial tax base. In the 5 years that Grand Park has existed, Westfield has enjoyed over $1 billion of new commercial investment, either on the tax rolls, being built, or going through the development process. So is Grand Park working? Yes, it is. Now we move on to the next stages of our economic development. A large part of that has to do with building on the business of sports. The ProX, private investment. Joe Thatcher back here, Kokomo's best pitcher has ever produced. That was his lifelong dream, was to build a facility for high-performance sports training. We've got Andy Card invested down here greatly with the Pacers Center. And we are talking to track and field people. We've got the new natatorium going up back just down the road here in conjunction with our schools. And so the business of sports is beginning to really build momentum. And the third part really of our economic development is simply what we want to call, for lack of a better term, in very general terms, advanced manufacturing. And we feel like we're in a great position to do that because of our geography, because of the desirability of this city. 2 years ago, you know, we announced the international company of Bastian Toyota, which is a division of Toyota Advanced Logistics, up and running now. And then in the last couple months, we've had the privilege to announce Aptiv, moving their autonomous vehicle laboratory research here to Westfield. We have Gordon Food Service locating their first distribution center in Indiana, although they serve a greater part of the central and eastern United States. Very high-tech distribution facility. And then we have the Abbott facility, investing many millions of dollars in the medical facility production here at North Point. And what these companies are all looking for is a place. These companies represent over 1,000 new jobs. They all know that we don't have 1,000 people today ready to line up and go to work. But they do know as they look across the country that they're looking for cities that have, yes, they have the basics down, but they've also been able to invest in the amenities that attract people. Amenities like our school system, and working closely with our schools to produce one of the top 10 school systems in all of Indiana. Working to build a trail system, one of the best amenities we can build in these flatlands, and people love it. Investing in Grant Park, because it's not only something that is an industry, our citizens have a great deal of pride in what this entire facility is. So these companies know that they can attract in Westfield a very large variety of employees, from the executives, the designers, the engineers. They need assemblers, they need blue-collar workers. With our unique geographical location on the north edge of the metro area, and with the 31 freeway as it continues to march north, we can draw from a group of people that don't necessarily want to live in a city, but may live in Lebanon, Frankfurt, Kokomo, people that are willing to work here, and people that are willing to move here. So Westfield is really no longer just known for Pickett's Cafeteria and the world's largest Dairy Queen. They're long gone. But Westfield has become truly the top destination, one of the fastest growing city really in Indiana, and one of the top destinations. And we'd love to have you invest in our city.
Thank you. Seth, Lauren, why Westfield for you?
Certainly. And when my predecessor, Pat, who was here, they started doing the market analysis of where their healthcare needs, they looked around, and the population growth was coming up north of 146. Historically, a lot of the growth was in the southern part of Hamilton County. Carmel and Fisher sort of filled up, and we started seeing the growth north of 146, and a lot of the growth here spurred more growth. So we started looking around and saying, where should we expand our healthcare footprint? We've been serving greater Noblesville area for 110 years, but wanted to look around and say, how can we meet the needs of the growing population? And quickly identified Westfield because of the growth that was occurring. Massive growth. People in Westfield, I think, were sick of heading south for healthcare or across 32 for healthcare. They want to be able to get healthcare in their own backyard, and so we identified it, and we actually started building an outpatient care center on the school site, and thought at some point in the future maybe it would be a hospital. Well, while it was under construction, we looked at the rapid growth and said, hold up, let's stop construction and redesign this thing as a hospital here and now. And so we did. We ceased construction, sat for a few months. Everyone was wondering what was going on. And it sat while we redesigned that so it could actually be a hospital right out the gate and serve the needs. So as Mayor Cook talked about the growth, we identified that, and as healthcare provider, we want a commercially insured population. We have a lot of needy patients, a lot of governmentally covered patients, but we also need the insured patients, and the type of population growth here actually met that need. So we identified that. Then you look at this, what has happened with Grant Park, and any given weekend there's tens of thousands of people coming here. When there's tens of thousands of people coming here, there's a lot of injuries and illnesses that occur. We certainly don't wish any kid to blow out his knee on the soccer field, but it's going to happen. And you need proximate health care to meet those needs. For somebody that's out of the area to suddenly try to find a place to go to look at their kid's knee when he blows it out, they have to go down to Carmel and figure out what healthcare provider. Just doesn't make good sense. So we have a hospital right in the backyard or side yard of Grand Park here, and can meet those needs. And so we looked around and just decided this makes sense. So what we built was a 7-story hospital. It's 105,000 square feet. It's been open just 14 months now, and continues to see incredible volume growth. We have an ER urgent care combination model that really meets the needs of those people, that are local and from out of town. You aren't sure how sick or injured someone is. You come here to our facility, you're seen by emergency room physician, treated by emergency room staff, and you're able to get the care that you need. And so it's been a great draw for the population. And then what we see is it's not just the Westfield population hating to go south. We're now drawing from the south. We are seeing a number of patients coming from Carmel and from other areas up to Westfield for their healthcare needs. It is very easy. It's on the corner of 31 and 32, so it's easily accessible. And then as the population growth continues to head north, the Chatham Hills growth, and the growth up, it's going to continue up towards Kokomo, then we can be the healthcare provider for that growth as it occurs and make it easily accessible. So, and with that, we brought a lot of jobs to the area. We've got physicians and staff. Mayor Cook talked about the workers. We have everything from housekeepers and food service workers up to physicians that work and live in this community. And so we were able to draw from the varied population base in terms of workforce. So we're really pleased with what's happened here. We plan on continuing to grow. We sit on about 8.5 acres on the south end of the school property, and we have some capability of continuing to grow on that spot, and we're already running short on some of the space that we have within the 4 walls. So we, yes. So we're at some point in the future, there's going to have to be further growth for us. So we're happy to be part of the community, excited. And if any of you are not feeling well today or slip and fall on your way out, please know that we do have health care around the corner to meet your needs.
There's no ice on it.
That's true. They trip over their own feet.
Yeah.
Well, all the developers in the room are already wondering, oh, they need more space. That's good. So we're going to switch to Rob Bloom, a banker. Please tell us why Westfield.
Sure. First of all, I'd like to echo the mayor's thanks for being here and for the opportunity to speak, Birch and Edrock, for putting this together. From a tangible standpoint, answering the question why Westfield is pretty easy. A bank needs 3 things to be successful. We need depositors, we need borrowers, and we need employees. We need great employees. Based on what the mayor's talked about, what Seth has talked about, those things are all apparent. The community is growing. The number of rooftops is expanding. A very, very attractive demographic in terms of household income and net worth. So those are all very important tangibles that brought us here. Also, as we looked around at growth opportunities, we looked at some other Hamilton County communities. And for those of you that have driven through Carmel and Fishers, it's hard not to run into a bank. We don't have that many here in Westfield yet. I think we're going to get there. We're glad to be early in the game. But I think there are also some important intangibles that have affected our decision. First of all, we've had a great reception from the community and from the administration, a very pro-business, pro-growth attitude that I think is just, you have to have it in today's environment for a community to succeed and prosper. That feeds good and great schools, which will continue to attract people to the area. So we see continued growth. There's still opportunity. There's land available. We have obviously a lot of developer interest in the community, and every time I drive down here, something new is coming up or is being completed, and that's obviously encouraging for a bank. The other intangible is still that sense of community, and banking is really kind of segregating into two industries. We have the national banks that really trend more towards electronics and technology-based banking, and then we have the community banks, many of us which are in the room today, who really build our reputations on service and in participating in the communities in which we serve. That's our niche. Our money's green. Most rates are pretty comparable. We need to be in places where we work side by side with the community, and that's important to the community. So we have found that in Hamilton County and especially in Westfield. So.
Thank you. Follow up to that, for all the bankers I haven't met in here today, I would strongly encourage you to talk with Rob and his team, Paul Weddy, First Bank of Richmond, and Craig Suzanne, because I've been involved with all 3, and they're really good at syndicating larger loans. So please talk to them while you're here, and let's keep building that pot of money for guys like Kinky, Wilkes, and I, Chittiton over here to spin. So the next one will go, I'm going to come to Mr. Hinkie last because he has some of the neatest things to say, I'm sure. Chris Wilkes, Holiday, you've invested millions and millions of dollars in Westfield. Tell the crowd why you're in Westfield, other than the fact I coached your son in basketball.
That's right. Well, he's still in therapy for that. So I'm kind of an accidental. I guess I would say an odd way to start the answer here, but I found Westfield accidentally. My wife and I were living in Broderickville at the time when our daughter was born in April of 2001. And I grew up on the north side of Indianapolis, 86th and Ditch area, went to North Central, and the only time we ever found our way up to Westfield was to go to the 3J's go-kart place, which is going to be showcased in the Hinkie new development, right? You're keeping the go-kart track there. So, but I didn't really know Westfield, and so I remember our daughter was particularly a fussy baby, okay? So I was traveling a lot at the time for my job, and what I didn't know that my wife was, in order to calm my daughter, she used to put her in the car and drive her around. And she must have been particularly fussy one day because she made her way all the way up to Westfield. And then she called me, I was actually out of town, and she said, hey, I found a house. We were in Broderickville, I didn't know we were looking. But I quickly knew that we were looking at that time, right? You get that call, that tone, and I said, okay, where are you? She said, it's Westfield. And this was 2001. My first reaction was, is it a farm? Because I don't farm. But so I came up and had a look, and lo and behold, we bought a house here in Westfield that she found. And so going back to the question, why Westfield, it's really been easy. It's an easy one for me to answer because since that June of 2001, I've lived here in Westfield and raised my family here. And my daughter that I just spoke to, she is a freshman at IU, and so she went through the Westfield schools. And my son, despite Birch's coaching, is doing just fine in Westfield. And so, you know, it's easy, and you're right, Birch, we have made a lot of investments, but it's easy for me. I've lived here, and so all the things that the mayor and others have mentioned that are so attractive and others find attractive, the sense of place, the amenities, the trails, the high quality of schools, it's just, you know, and some of you may know with Holiday, I've been with Holiday since 2002, and our largest project here in Indianapolis, what we're most known for, is the Ameriplex down there by the Indianapolis International Airport. And so I spent, I drove down to Ameriplex every day from 2002 to lead. You know, I had I guess the good fortune of starting and ending my day in a great community of Westfield. And as I left and came back, I guess I thought, well, at some point in time, I'm going to invest here because this is a great place. And so we did. And one of the first projects that we did here was this building, as Birch mentioned, this building itself. And I'll touch on that a little bit. This is because this was a public-private partnership with the city of Indianapolis, or of Westfield, rather. And that is another, I think, really, really strong strength that we have as a community. The high-functioning government, leadership, and the ability to sit down with the economic development team and the mayor and the city council. You know, we do business all over the place, and I can tell you, we are really blessed in this community. And I'm not just saying that because I live here and I'm investing here. It's the truth. I mean, my partners in other parts of the community, the world, they're like, how do you do that? You just sit down, you just call them up and sit down? I'm like, yes, that's all you really do. And so that is a real strength of our community. So, you know, why Westfield? You know, it's just, you know, again, just to touch, you know, everyone's kind of described it here, but it's really been a great place, Birch.
So, Mr. Hankey Development, besides Bridgewater, Chatham, has several commercial properties, 191st Street. Hopefully, the brokers in the room, developers here, know what he's got going on 191st on both east and west side of it. A funny story, I called him up going to Grant Park one morning, and there was a line of traffic waiting to get off on 191st Street. It was probably 6:30 a.m. I call him up, he picks up the phone. He goes, "What do you want?" I said, "Did you buy GPS too?" Because everybody was going on 191st. But so Steve, you know, you've been asked probably by several people, but for this group, tell them why Westfield is the place to invest and be.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll gladly do that. But I do want to point out that I think what Birch said earlier was very accurate, not only to Mayor Cook being nervous when Birch has the microphone, but I think all of us. We began acquiring ground in Westfield in the mid to late 80s. We were developing office buildings, retail centers and so forth in Carmel at that time. And we thought by natural progression that, and with 31 being in the geographic location of Westfield, that was the next frontier, so to speak, at that time for development. So we at that time began acquiring a property. I think our first property was a 50-acre property on 151st Street. Our goal was to put together a large enough property that could be a large mixed-use development at some point in time. That 50-acre parcel in the mid-'80s was about $2,000 an acre. So compared to what it is today, things did go up. I think as we acquired ground and gradually ended up with about 600 acres there, we were paying as much as $2,400 an acre. To be able to go back and do that today, it'd be incredible. We actually planted a tree farm. If you drive through Bridgewater, it's now Bridgewater. If you look at Bridgewater, you'll see it's very heavily wooded. There were hardly any trees on that property when we acquired it. My partners and I and my law firm at that time had come from small town backgrounds and decided we wanted to play in the dirt. And so we decided the best way to hold that property for a period of time until it was ready for development was to plant a tree farm. And we had no idea how to plant a tree farm or what to do, but we acquired about 50,000 trees and began planting all types, white pine spruces, blue spruce, red oaks, pin oaks, everything. And so we began planting those, and then we had to maintain those. So we learned a lot. We bought a tractor. The local farmer, Roudabush, said these dumb lawyers, they don't know what in the world, and we didn't know what we were doing. But that grew, really grew. We acquired more and more, and I said we ended up with around 700 acres there, that then became Bridgewater. So as it got into the late 90s, things started maturing. The shopping center, Simon Center at 146 began developing. That property had been acquired, I believe, in the late 70s, but sat for a number of years and then began going. I think that property actually originally sold for $10,000 an acre. I hate to be the old man here, but it sounds like I definitely am. But so that began developing, and things began moving a little bit north. Some water lines came in. We then began planning for development, either the sale or development of that property. And we actually then began developing that in right around 2000. We really don't do demographic studies. I know my banks probably don't want to hear that, but we really don't do demographic studies when we do our developments. We really do. We do a lot of due diligence. We look at a lot of areas. We look at a lot of different factors as to what we think, where we think things are headed. Most of the time, your geographic studies, your demographic studies, and so forth aren't going to anticipate out that much as to what you're doing and what you're planning. So we did do a slight one when we started Bridgewater, and at that time the study indicated that Westfield, and this is in the year probably 2001, Westfield could only absorb six $600,000 homes a year. And I looked at my partner and I said, well, we've got a 50-year supply in this first section of development that we're getting ready to do here. Luckily with the golf course and the amenities and everything at Bridgewater, everything really transpired and pushed well. We then after developing that and almost finishing a lot of the development of that, we began looking at, we heard about the potential for Grand Park. We thought, Grand Park, geez, it's kind of like Birch at first, is that really going to work? And we were looking at different sites, and then we heard the committee was looking at additional locations. Originally it was going to go in the 146th and Town area, and I went to the mayor and I said, if you really want the economic development, you really ought to look at your northwest quadrant of 32 and 31.
You told me that at a funeral.
Yeah, that's true. And the mayor says to me, well, why don't you go out and find some ground for us? So we did. We went out and found 400 acres of ground, which is now Grand Park. We were able to get 5 or 6 property owners to go together, all the same terms and conditions, and the city then bought the ground from the property owners, and we were honored to be selected by the city to develop Grand Park. So that was the one where do you start, how do you start, but it was a great opportunity, and we spent about 4 years from the starting point of putting engineers together, putting designs together, putting layouts together, tours. There's a number of city councilmen here today that were city councilmen then, and we were toured, and we'd say, okay, right, here's the baseball diamond, and here's home plate. It's all weeds, and the mayor probably remembers that too, but we're really proud of having developed Grand Park and what it is turned out to be. The mayor's right that it's one of the biggest things of Grand Park. One of the biggest things the committee was looking at that time was creating an identity for Westfield. Westfield really did not have an identity. Some places have the identities for the arts and different things like that, but they were looking at what can we do. And that's where the committee came up with that. Not only sports tourism, economic benefits, but also an identity. And I think it has really done that. And I think that, as well as the geographic location, has really helped propel Westfield in its tremendous growth. Why Westfield? The interstate with 31 is so accessible. It's helped so much. We measure distance today by time, not by miles. I mean, when's the last time somebody has said, how many miles is it to Fisher such and such, or how many miles is this? It's always, how long is it? How long does it take? And it's always 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Well, that's one of the biggest reasons, 31 upgrade, removing the stoplights, I think is one of the biggest things and reasons everybody should look at Westfield today for its growth that's taking place now, as well as in the future. In the past, it would take about 23 minutes to get from 465 to Main Street 32 in Westfield. Now you're talking 9 or 10 minutes with no stoplights. What's 9 or 10 minutes? Well, it's the difference that basically in the past, 9 or 10 minutes took you to Main Street of Carmel. And now 9 or 10 minutes takes you to Main Street of Westfield. So Westfield, geographically and time-wise, is now where Carmel was. So I think that's a really big factor that's just going to continue to push things. I think one of the things we've done around Grand Park here is we're developing the area south of Grand Park called Grand Park Village. An apartment complex will be starting there in the spring. Wellbrook, the assisted living rehabilitation center, was one of the first projects to go in. In fact, the mayor will probably recall that was about a $16 million development going in. It was in a cornfield. There was no 191st Street, and so we had to give them an easement through the cornfield to start construction with no road in place. So that was one of the first things to take place there. Cambria Suites then came. And you probably saw the sign, Frank Swiss, who is here today, is doing a project on the water, shops and restaurants on the water. Primrose facility will be starting in the spring in Grand Park Village. You also have Methodist Sports Medicine has acquired property there. In addition to that, Coyne is developing a really high-end pet hospital on the corner of 181st and Grand Park Boulevard or Wheeler Road. And also, more recently, the school administration, Westfield Schools, has entered into an agreement to acquire almost 20 acres there, of which they will be building a new administration building as well as a early child learning center. So that development, all that development is being spurred, I think, in major part because of Grand Park. In addition, we then began around Grand Park, or prior to that, acquiring ground that is now Chatham. That's an interesting thing when you've got about 35 different property owners to acquire land, and you may own land on both sides, but you need the heart of the melon, and you don't know whether they're going to sell or not. So there's always there's a lot of meetings sitting in kitchens with the landowners, and usually an 80-acre parcel, for instance, you have to have 3 negotiations. It's usually owned by the farmer and his sister. And the farmer owns 3 acres in his house. So you have to negotiate with the farmer and his sister as to the price of the land, okay? Once you have that negotiation done, that's usually with their kids and maybe grandkids and everything else, and a lot of meetings. Then once that's done, then you have to negotiate with the farmer for his house and the 3 acres, and you're always going to pay twice what that's worth. Then you get to the last negotiation of, I assume you're going to let us farm this until you develop it. And even though farm rents might be $200, $250 an acre, we think we're going to pay you $50 an acre. Well, done deal. But then it's over. So all those things factor into things that in acquiring and developing properties. But Chatham Hills now with the clubhouse, with the world-class golf course, is really doing well. Chatham Commons is part of that. That's 191st Street and 31. You've probably seen the Spring Hill Suites Hotel, about a $20 million hotel that's gone in there. Wendy's has just gone in. There's a Kiddie Academy daycare center going in. Marathon has acquired a property. Marriott Courtyard is getting ready to go in the spring there. And in addition to that, we've acquired about 250 more acres north of that, all the way up to 203rd Street. And Chatham Hills will end up having almost a West Clay village effect. We're putting large lakes in, and there'll be alley homes and different homes and commercial, total mixed-use development that'll be going in on 31 across from Chris's development there. That'll also become our front door on Tomlinson to what is currently Chatham Hills. So in addition to that, we're developing a Midtown property for MMI. That's on the corner of 191st Street and 31 on the opposite corners, the northeast and the southeast corners there. That's about a 150-acre mixed-use development. A lot of interest in that already. We also have properties on 161st and 31. But we are really excited about Westfield and excited about the growth potential for Westfield. I think it's just really beginning. I think when you look at the other communities, you look at the planned development that I think this community has implemented, I think that's a real strength towards future development. Chris mentioned the administration. The administration has been great to work with. They've streamlined so many things. The mayor has been so instrumental in his vision in implementing things. Matt Skelton, who just retired from the planning department back there, the planning department, and Kevin Todd now, is very streamlined from where it was. You can get through projects. Obviously we stress quality all the time, but they're very good to work with. And with that, I can't say enough about developing Westfield. We love it, and we continue it, and we do have some lots available at Chatham if any of you do not already have your lot there. So thank you very much.
Well, you can see why Westfield's going the direction it is with guys like Mr. Hinkie there. So the follow-up question, hopefully people are formulating questions to ask, but I think Steve touched on it, but there's a lot of commercial real estate brokers in the room, and I've had a chance to talk with them and looked up some reloads and was in some competition for some corporate headquarters. But they always, said, well, Westfield's too far north. So Chris Wilkes addressed, is Westfield too far north?
No. But you, and Steve made a real good point about the importance of US 31. Again, as someone who used to make that drive, that 30-minute drive from Westfield to 465 before the US 31, I remember the length of time it took to get from 465 up here. And at that stage, you could probably make a case that it was too far north. But I don't, it certainly is not now, and you don't need to take my word for it. You don't have to take the word of the folks from Abbott Labs, Gordon Food Service, Browning Chapman, all of whom who have acquired land and are building significant facilities in our North Point. So I'd answer it through those investment decisions on those very big companies, so no.
Okay, does anybody have any questions they want to ask specifically of somebody at this point? If you do, you can either write it down or just stand up and ask it. Do I have anybody yet?
Well, I want to address the too far north
I'm sorry,
question,
Mary Cook.
because I think I can give you a couple of stories. Well, three things. First of all, you know, the totem pole we have up down there on the other side of 146th Street, that I graciously allowed Brainerd to put Carmel on the other side. Did you notice that? It was either that or I was going to build a wall, so we decided that would be good. I was surprised how many people have told me that we didn't know Westfield began at 146th Street. We thought it was 161st or 32. So yeah, Westfield really does begin at 146th Street. But I experienced back in 2005, not dissimilar from Chris there, my son Ben says we were getting ready to move out of Carmel, and he said, you need to look at Westfield. And I'm like, Westfield? And yeah, there's this thing coming in called Bridgewater, you need to look at it. Well, Barb and I went up there, fell in love with it, met Steve, and wanted to understand where he was going with it. And by that time, I mean, there were some pretty good sized homes going up, and you know, with what you people pay me, I can't afford very much. But he told me that the other part of that demographic story was that there were a lot of people that told him, you know, Henke, you're nuts, because nobody's going to buy a house for more than $175,000 in Westfield, Indiana. Is that right, Steve?
True, true.
How'd that work out for you?
It worked out okay.
You were okay. And then, just in the last 5 years, you know, there's this thing called Chatham Hills. Well, that's close to the Arctic Circle, you know. It's way up there, north of 196th Street, almost all the way to 38. And just like he's done on several, I took the tour on the Jeep. Oh, look at this hole, look at that hole. You can't see a thing, believe me, but you just kind of let him do his thing. Then he says to me, you know where I'm going?
I do.
Andy? I said, well, how's this going to compare to Bridgewater? He said, Andy, you'll be able to buy a home on the golf course for $350,000. Can you show me that house today, Steve?
Sorry, Mayor, I can't.
That's the lot price.
So, how far ahead of schedule are you from your original projections with Chatham?
We're between 3 and 4 years ahead of schedule.
So, being that far north, how'd that work out for you?
It worked out fine. I think, if I can add something, I think one of the big pluses is the roundabouts are being built, okay? It's not only the 31 upgrade, but it's a roundabout. You can go to Chatham Hills, for instance, to the Indianapolis airport, or to downtown, or to California, wherever, without a stoplight or stop sign. You leave the development, you're going down Thomas, you got roundabouts, so you can get to the airport in 30, 35 minutes. I think roundabouts throughout the city have been a big factor in that, because it's all about timing, and that's what people perceive. Well, is it too far north? And once they drive it and see, Westfield is not, nor those developments. We frequently would have people over the last couple of years that would have meetings from downtown Indianapolis coming up to Chatham Hills for a meeting, for instance, and we'd see them sitting out in the parking lot 20, 25 minutes ahead of the meeting. And somebody says, "Steve, you have a meeting up there?" Yeah. And I told them, "You can come on in." They could not believe how quick you could get there from downtown Indianapolis. They would routinely be at least 20 minutes early for a meeting like that.
So all you commercial real estate brokers out there, you can talk to Pat Chiddington, Steve, Chris, any of us. It's time to bring your corporate headquarters up on 31, 161st Street, Grand Millennium, 191st Street. We're ready for you. So follow-up question. This goes to Rob Bloom from a banker who sent it to me. His question is that what do you see in the quality of loans, loan opportunities, and opportunities for other banks to work with you here in Westfield on projects?
Well, one of the things that we've been hugely happy about is the loan demand that we've had since 2015 when we first came to Hamilton County. And it's not just real estate development, it's commercial and industrial, small business loans, residential mortgages. The impact on our bank has been tremendous. And because we are a small community bank with a relatively small lending limit, we've been able to find participants to help fund those loans. So we may be able to loan $4 million ourselves, but we can find partners to do significantly more. So we've participated in projects north of $10 million with a partner or two to help us along the way. The loan quality has been exceptional. The area has attracted very high quality borrowers, very high quality developers. Steve referenced what land prices have done since the 80s, and that's accelerated. We've seen appreciation in the properties that we've purchased, as well as those that we've financed. So the consumer base here is also tremendous. When we look at our home, where we started the bank in Howard County, to do a $300,000 or $400,000 mortgage is the exception. We're down here; those properties are the norm. So I haven't seen that $350,000 house on Chatham. I hope I beat you to it. But no, it's a tremendous area for loan growth, and we continue to see great opportunities as the town grows.
So people are afraid to write down or talk, but they're texting me questions. So the next question comes, I won't say who it's from. Well, hang on. Bill Cooler, you say there's a question in the back. Hi.
Brian Bond is Allocraft. I've crunched numbers before for some clients trying to assemble land here in Westfield, and often between high construction prices and maybe the expectation that some property owners have due to some of the other areas as far as per acre prices, the numbers don't work. What solutions have you guys found with maybe some of the expectations of landowners here in Hamilton County, as well as balancing out the rental rates and high construction?
Mr. Hankey, did you hear that one?
Yeah,
we'll let you do that one.
That's a good question. I think the question is the question was, for those who could not hear, was what do you do with land prices when perhaps landowners might have too high of expectations on pricing, and that does happen because they hear what land in another city might be going for, or they hear or they think that a farm ground out in the country is going to be the next Walmart or something, and so I think it's honesty, integrity. You have to be honest with the landowners and explain to them what you feel their land is worth. I think it's patience. When I was putting together Chatham, I indicated that we had pieces on both sides but didn't have the heart of the melon. We got a letter from that family indicating that they wanted to sell. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this just doesn't happen. They want to sell. This is gonna be great. It took 2 years for a willing seller to put the deal together because of the price they wanted, which was twice what everybody else was. And of course, everyone talks, and so you can't just pay that, then you're going to end up having to pay for everything else. So I think it's time and patience. A lot of times people hear certain numbers and they expect that they're going to get those. A lot of times people will tie something up, you know, at a higher number, thinking they can maybe flip it in the meantime to someone. And so it just takes time and patience to bring that landowner back. And you have to establish a relationship. Most of these farms, most of these properties have been held by families for many years, 80, 90, 100, 150 years. The one property where we rebuilt the barn out of Chatham on 31, that property was owned by the family since 1835. It took me 6.5 years to acquire that property. And you have to be honest, you have to be patient, and be willing to spend the time. And they want to know, you know, what you're going to do, what the quality of it is. Are you going to build a park? Might you name a park after them? Are you going to maintain certain structures, things like that? So there's a lot of different factors that go into trying to acquire property. It's not just a matter of price. So you have to have relationships too.
Got a couple more questions here. Well, 3 more. They're coming in pretty fast. The first comment is to Mayor Cook. Jay Howard, the IndyCar 500 driver back here, it's developing here in Westfield, would like for Westfield to sponsor him in the next 500. That's from his
I
wife.
think there's members of our city council here are now, aren't there, though? Please see them. Yeah, we'd be happy to.
All right, next question, Chris Wilkes, North Point Development. What do you see as estimated build-out time to completion with the project? And once done, do you see other opportunities in the same industrial space?
Well, first of all, you can't sell anything in North Point because you don't have a road.
Yes. That is it's a little inside joke there with the mayor and I told him that we would never be able to move an acre in that project without a road, which is the soon-to-be constructed East Street extension. So we've moved a few acres, and they haven't broken ground on the road. So it was reminding me of that. But build-out time, boy, I would say we are again. Consider I said we wouldn't sell a piece of one acre. We are ahead of schedule for sure. But I would venture to say we're probably another 5 years, 5 to 10 years from being fully built out there. Now that could change with another, couple Abbotts and Gordons and the like. But yes, I certainly see other development opportunities in that area as well as other areas for Westfield. What we're finding in that project, and maybe to touch on a little bit on Brian, your question earlier too, is that the land values are higher than what you would otherwise find in the metro area, both on the acquisition side and the sell side. But what we're finding there in all those cases, Abbott, Toyota, Gordon, is they are buying not just I'd like to think it's North Point and Holiday, but let's face it, it's the community. Okay, they are invested in the community. So what we're finding there are high quality companies are wanting to really. It's not so different than what the residential experience that we touched upon. What a nice place this community is to buy a home and raise a family. These companies are looking at it the same way, that, hey, if I'm going to put down $100, $200 million on a facility, what better place to do that in Westfield? So I think the community is going to continue to grow, the amenity base is going to continue to grow, and so with that I see additional opportunities in that advanced manufacturing and industrial space for sure.
Okay, thank you. I've got a couple more questions. One's for the entire group. This one's not from me, Mayor. This is from somebody in the audience. The question, what does the future for industrial real estate tax abatement look like for Westfield, Indiana? And I'm not asking it.
I didn't ask that either.
Steve, did you ask that?
Every one of you asked me that. The incentives packages are always fun for us to try to figure out. Frankly, with the environment that we've created out here at Graham Park, we're always asked, oh, we need a tax abatement. The answer around Graham Park is no, and the response from the developer is always the same. We had to ask. The rest of the city, where, I mean, no secret, we compete with other cities. We mayors would rather, there would be no such things as tax abatements and TIF participation. But it's real, it's competitive, and that gives us an opportunity really to be somewhat discriminatory in the kinds of businesses that we wish to have here. We do think that we're planning our commercial development. We want it to be in a certain types of businesses really, and because of supply and demand, again, of the place, we can use that tool really to our advantage and be somewhat discriminatory and selective in the kinds of businesses that will best affect our tax base, can best add back to the schools, and those that frankly want to participate in the community development of our city. Because so much of what we are is more than things. One of the programs that I am most proud of is the Westfield Youth Assistance Program, now being enlarged into the Well-Being Coalition. But it's a program that prevents our youth from going into the legal system. And it's all about corporate and citizen volunteers. And it's so successful that what began in Westfield is now spread to all of Hamilton County by school district. It's in Zionsville. It's spreading to Hendricks County, Warren Township. State legislature is just now using some seed money to take it across the state of Indiana. But it's a part about building the community and keeping the community involved. And so we're looking for companies that have that kind of spirit, be it large or small, that they want to give back into a community to keep it small, if I may.
I got one question, then there'll be a question for the group. This is for Mayor Cook. What is the predicted population for 2025 and then again 2030 for Westfield?
I don't know, but I know where to look it up. I know, as I said earlier, I knew in the year 2005, the projected population for 2020, was 41,000 people.
And we're there now?
I would guess by the 2020, we'll be there. I didn't look beyond that, Birch. I don't know how much.
I understand. All right, starting with Mr. Hinkie, each one of you will close out our session today, and then we're going to move back to the refreshments and new hors d'oeuvres and a chance to network. The biggest goal today was to get people talking, commercial real estate people, finance, investors, and so forth. So after this question, we're going to kind of draw it to a conclusion. I'm probably going to give out a few bottles of Hard Truth spirits, but starting with Mr. Hinkie, the Grand Junction project downtown, what impact do you see and what perspective can you lend to that for Westfield?
The Grand Junction project is a project that going to have the park and lots of amenities and buildings and so forth. I'm not that involved with that much, so I'm not probably a good person to comment on that.
Okay. Hey, before I get to Rob Bloom on that same question, Senator Sparks. I wanted to introduce you. She's here tonight. She does great work for our area. Thank you for showing up. And then if everybody has time after we party here for a while, we'll go up to Chatham and go to her fundraiser. Rob Malone, Grand Junction. You're Kokomo guy looking in now, and you're also an investor. You know, what impact do you see Grand Junction?
I'm a Westfield guy too. I spend a lot of time here now, but I think Grand Junction, it follows the theme that's been spoken about at this table extensively. It's quality of life, quality of place. In order for business to thrive, you have to attract quality employees and quality people to support your business. And without the amenities that the city has worked so hard to build and support, that developers have helped build out, you're just not going to be able to attract those people. Mayor Cook referenced 3,000 or 4,000 jobs coming to Westfield that the population isn't here to support that now, but there are being homes built for them, and those amenities will help draw those people here. So it is all about quality of life, quality of place. It improves all of our investments.
I'm going to jump over the mayor. Seth Warren, how much investment has Riverview made on that corner today?
Over $60 million.
Okay. So what's your perspective of Grand Junction right down the road from you?
I can look at it from two ways. One, I'm a resident of Westfield as well. So, as a resident, with my family lives here, great area. There will be a lot to offer. The amenities that these guys talked about is very appealing as a resident of Westfield. The Park Street restaurants now going down there, as that area expands and as the parks build out, we're really looking forward to that. And then, purely from a business standpoint, more people come to the community, on a daily basis to experience the amenities, and more people move into the area. So it's anything that draws people from a business perspective. We want to take care of their needs, and we're looking forward to that growth.
Thank you. Chris Wilkes, what's your perspective on Grand Junction, and do you think it'll drive more development around it?
I do. For all the virtues of Westfield that we've all been talking about, one thing that Westfield, we are lacking is a defined downtown area. And so I think Grand Junction brings that opportunity to do that. And I would just mention, going back to Abbott Labs and Gordon Food Service, both those companies were looking at other communities here in Hamilton County. And those two communities and the other ones as well have defined and identified downtown areas. And so I look at it as a way to fill a gap for Westfield, so that we don't have that box unchecked, which we do right now. So I'm very excited about it for North Point and for the rest of the community as well.
Mayor Cook, last comment on Grand Junction?
Yeah, Grand Junction, again, is just another piece of the menu to make Westfield a very unique place. And it really serves two purposes. One is that it is a gathering place for our local people. And we're trying to develop in a different way than many of our surrounding cities. It's a little more eclectic. The Park Street kind of restaurants is really a broad ripple for families. And that's what the plaza will begin to precipitate, even more of those kinds of businesses. We're looking to, over here on this side, we're all kind of chains, and what you're going to see downtown is going to be very, very local in nature. And the other aspect of the Grand Junction Plaza is, again, that uniqueness, because one of the things that we need to do here at Grant Park, this time of year when all of our visitors are gathering back in their own soccer or baseball or lacrosse or rugby, and they're deciding where do we go next year. And we want them to continually check, we've got to go back to Grant Park, because not only do we get to play our games all in one location, but there is so much to do, not only in Westfield, but downtown Indy, sports-oriented, NCAA museum, the Speedway. You look at our surrounding cities for all their uniqueness. We've got Fishers with its entrepreneurial development, Noblesville with its classic county, Indiana County Square, Carmel, obviously, with its Performing Arts Center. We've got Zionsville right here next door, which is part of Hamilton County, you know, and it's with its beautiful, unique downtown. And when people see those kinds of things that they can go and see, they're going to return back here. And that's a huge part of our marketability, of our uniqueness of our downtown.
Thank you.